Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Games You May Have Missed. Now, I had a couple criteria when I started the show. Number one, games that you may have overlooked because of, I don't know, other things like popping up in your Steam sales or something. Number two, it has to be cheap. So, of course, Sunless Sea rose to the top of my list immediately. Now, normally I would jump right into some of the action, kind of show you everything that's going on, or show you the intro to the game, things like that. But I wanted to show you the title screen for a couple reasons. First of all, because it does a fantastic job of setting the mood. Now, this game is all about the atmosphere. If you're not a fan of atmospheric games or exploration games, this is probably not for you. Second of all, I wanted to show you this button right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it says new stories available. It's highlighted in yellow. It's probably turning weird colors since I keep mousing over it. I hope that's not bugging anyone. It probably is. I'm sorry. That button is hugely important. I'm not going to click it at the moment, but this game came out in February of 2015. It is months and months and months after that, way after that, and they're still adding content into the game. That is how awesome it is. They're constantly adding new things, more stories, extra characters, different things like that. And I'll show you where all that comes into play here in just a minute. Now, this game is largely based in kind of two different stages. One is where you're sailing around, exploring, kind of filling in those blank corners of the map and looking around and finding new things. And the second game takes place in a lot of menus, where you do a lot of reading and it provides text and you make your choices. It also has a lot of RPG elements that really come into play as well. There's a few combat elements. It's not as deep as it maybe could be, but that's actually probably a good thing. And I'll explain why if we get into any combat here. But okay, so this is Fallen London. Now, the story for the game goes that, I don't remember if they say what year it was, but London was swallowed up by bats, is what they say. It was thrown underground. It just sort of sunk deep under the earth. And when it did that, they discovered this gigantic underground cavern full of water, basically. It's salt water. It's an entire underground sea full of all sorts of horrible things that lurk in the depths and terrors that come up on shore to snatch unwilling and unknowing people from what they thought was safety. Now, a big deal in the game is light, and then the sanity of your crew, their terror. So a lot of the things that you'd be seeing here, I think this is actually me looking for new recruits at the moment. That's what this menu is saying. But this is kind of what the game looks like most of the time. This is my little ship here in the middle, and I could go ahead and launch, but I don't have a whole lot of fuel at the moment, so I don't want to do that. This is largely what the interface looks like. It's pretty unobstructed, mainly just because you can look around. All those little panels on the right will disappear as soon as I get going. This is the map that I currently have. Now, it's huge. It's gigantic, and as you can see, there are a lot of blank blank spaces that I haven't filled in yet. We'll go ahead and get underway, and I'll show you a few of these here in a minute. But my understanding is that the map is almost completely randomly generated each time. Now, this game is roguelike. So if you die, that means you have to start all over again, and your objective is to kind of make it easier for your next character to restart. And there's several sort of beginnings that you can pick that help with that. Now, the one that I've been picking the most recently is the one that lets you keep your old character's map. So there are a collection of RPG-style stats. They're called hearts, veils, pages, mirrors, and iron, and I'll explain those in a second, but you level these up as you go along, and these help you pass certain challenges. Now, when you die and you respawn, you kind of start as a new character, and you have the option of keeping part of one of those stats of one of your old characters. You can keep some of his money, you can keep a certain crew member if you found one that you really like, or you can keep his map. I usually pick the map because this thing is a pain in the butt to fill in. Now, all these little islands you can go to. Some of them you can even land on. All the ones with the little anchor icon are able to be landed on, and they all have stories and different things that you can do there, and some of them are good, and some of them are very, very bad. Now, part of the way that this game is played is that you report to the Admiralty of London. Your objective is, and may not be for you, but I find it's the most effective way to play the game, is to visit as many of these ports as possible and compile port reports. And then when you bring that back to the Admiralty, they'll reward you with money and fuel and sometimes other things as well. They'll also ask for very special places for you to go to and grab them strategic information, which they'll pay you handsomely for. So that's probably the best way to make money in the short term. Now, the game, as I mentioned earlier, has RPG-style stats, that being hearts, that's kind of your vitality, veils, that's sort of your stealth and deception, pages is kind of your intelligence, mirrors is your perception, and iron is sort of your strength. Those all come into play during different challenges in the game. And then here's my my captain's portrait. That is Hobet right there. You also get to customize your crew members. So at the moment, I have several of them. I think the only slot that's actually empty right now is the cook. But you can pick these people up. You have to pay some of them. Sometimes they'll be kind of story-relevant characters that'll tag along with you. They all increase those stats. Like, for example, my chief engineer, she increases my engine power and gives me extra veils and iron. So they're very important to have. You can also have a mascot that does different things for you. Like, I'm probably going to switch them out right here. From my comatose ferret to my albino tinkerer. Yes, that is a rat. Yes, it does speak English. Yes, it does fix my ship. That thing is awesome. The game is full of flavor. So before there's actually one island in particular that I'll show you here in a second, but I need to buy some supplies. So there are two main supplies that you kind of run through as you're playing the game. Like, for now, I'm going to buy some fuel. I know, for those of you that are actually familiar with this game... Oh, shoot, that was selling, not buying. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's embarrassing. Yes, I know things about this game. I'm good at this. I can do things. Do I have any... Did I already talk to the Admiralty? I'm not exactly sure where I last left off. So here... yeah, okay, I already turned in all my port reports. So he gave me fuel and money for that already. So you have two main kind of resources that you use as you're going through the game. Now, you'll see those in the upper left-hand corner. There's a couple meters up there. The one on the top that looks like it has a little flame next to it represents your fuel. Fuel is super duper important. These are steamboats. So if you run out of fuel, you're dead in the water. There's nothing you can do. The one below that is your hunger. It'll slowly fill up until it hits that middle point there. And once it hits that, your crew will eat, and you will lose one box of supplies. Now, boxes of supplies don't just represent food. They represent all sorts of other things as well, like tools and medical supplies and things like that. It's just kind of an all-purpose thing, I guess. So I guess, I'm going to go ahead and get underway here just to show you a little bit more of the game. I think I should have enough supplies first. But the game largely takes place doing this right here. Now, of course, you can get bigger and better ships. You can get extra weapons. You can customize your ship and add different components, different weapons, different lights, all sorts of things like that. But the largest portion of the game is going to take place with you sailing around in the darkness. Now, as I mentioned before, you haven't seen a whole lot of it just yet. This game is super atmospheric and flavorful. Now, one last resource that you kind of need to keep track of, and I know I'm kind of jumping around between ideas a lot, but I think this is a pretty good way to illustrate this right here. It's that little skull icon with the circle around it. It says Terror. Now, that is your terror level. As you can see, the little green lights on the side of my ship just sort of blinked on. That means that my crew is currently gaining terror. Oh, shoot, a bandit. Okay, this is a good point to illustrate some combat, I guess. My crew is currently gaining terror. As terror gets higher, bad things will happen. So I need to be careful to keep that low, if I can. I do that by keeping the prow lamp lit and then sailing through as much light as I can. Ooh. Wow, that was quick. I got a couple really good shots on that guy. Okay, so I destroyed an enemy bandit vessel, and now I'm kind of looting them for supplies. They gave me a firkin of prisoner's honey, and that was it. Wow, usually I get, like, some, what's it called? I'm sorry. Fuel or, like, supplies or something. That's disappointing. So, terror will go up at different rates. Now, as you can see, I'm sailing through the light right here. So those green lights wink off, and now my terror is actually decreasing. But as I go back out into open seas and it gets dark again, you'll see those lights come on and they'll start increasing again. If I turn the light off, it means I'm saving fuel, but my terror will increase even faster, which is really, really bad. Now, if terror increases 100, or I'm sorry, if terror increases to 100, it's game over. You lose. Your crew, you basically lose your mind. You slip into insanity. The eldritch call of the water takes you, and you sink to its icy depths, basically, as the game would put it. There are, of course, ways to reduce that. Stopping at certain ports, you can reduce terror by, going out and carousing and drinking and generally making a nuisance of yourself like sailors do. I think part of the charm of the game is in the way that it kind of takes it really captures a lot of those like superstitions that sailors have, things like that. And it's almost Lovecraftian in the way that it's written as well. Like, for example, I have a day-by-day log in the lower right here. Stalagmites loom in the distance like the cranes of the Wolfstack docks, but faster. The Corsair's Forest. Our lookouts are watchful. Now, that's because the Corsair's Forest is a dangerous place to be. This is where a lot of pirates and bandits and stuff hang out, because I'm getting close to Gator's Mourn, I think. Yeah, there it is. Each of the locations in the game are all kind of different, too. You don't have just, like, cookie-cutter towns. It really makes it exciting to find new places and really kind of explore. There are a lot of corners of the map that I haven't been to yet, and I'm actually really excited to go find them because of the different things that can happen there. Now, like I said, some of them are good and some of them are bad. If you ever find your place, if you ever find yourself in a place called the Chapel of Lights, they're generally nice people, but don't eat the food. They will offer you free food. Do not eat the food. If you play the game, I'll leave it to yourself to figure out why. This is Gator's Mourn, a stalagmite as vast as a crag, and its foot has no safe harbors. The Corsair Citadel nestles halfway up. An intricate system of winches takes the strain, and your ship rises slowly from the Z. Oh, that is also important to mention. This is not the C, it is the Z. So everything are like Z ships and Z-bats and Zailers, things like that. Her hull creaks in protest. Grizzled sailors groan and cling to the stanchions. So a lot of the fun of the game is kind of reading the things like that and really immersing yourself in the atmosphere of the game. So this is another where those stories come into place, the stories that I mentioned earlier. So I can choose to explore the Mourn, and something will happen. There's a surprising quantity of actual landscape on the Mourn. It's vertical, admittedly, but once you find the best paths and urchin roads, you can traverse it as you would rocky moor, with an additional throatful of lurching terror. A crew of Chelonate hunters exchange heated insults with the Connate privateer. It looks likely to end in blood. Now, the Chelonate are monster hunters. Or, I'm sorry, the Chelonians. Or Kelonians, or however you want to say it. They're monster hunters. They're kind of savages and barbarians, and they live way out in the ocean, kind of surrounded by these gigantic rotting carcasses and huge bones sticking out of the water of beasts that have been slain years ago, and that's where they live. They live out in the middle of all that. The Coganians are kind of, I guess they're like the Asian influence, but underwater. They've been here far longer than Fallen London has, so they refer to everyone else as surfacers, because I think they were the first ones here. Now, this is a iron challenge. This is basically a strength challenge, which is bad for me, because I don't have very high iron. So it'll actually tell me my chances of success if I kind of mouse over some of these other ones. So I can fight for myself. They're fighting over there, and I can be like, London is the best! What are you guys talking about? And I could run in and raise my own flag, but I would only have a 28% chance of success. I could side with the Coganians, which give me 72% chance, or I could go with the Colonians, which give me 96%. Now, this is because I have 48 iron. I think you only start with 25, so I'm going to side with these guys. Okay, good. So it was a successful challenge, which means I've got a favor. Now, I think it's also important to kind of mention how the journal works and like how inventory works. So you get to trade in a lot of really unique things. You pick up, I'm hesitant to call them items because they're more abstract than that. So, for example, I have a vision of the surface. Now, you can actually go up to the surface world and sail around on the ocean and all that, but for people that live underground, their skin is so fair that eventually the sunlight will kill them. Sunlight in this game is actually treated as a drug. People get addicted to it, and you can go and get a mirror catch box and then fill it up with sunlight on the surface and then sell it to certain people. and fuel their addiction, and they will pay you handsomely for it. So you get a vision of the surface if you go up to the top. Or maybe somebody will tell you a story about how they saw the setting sea, or the setting sun over the sea and all that stuff, and you can get that. And there are certain circumstances where you can actually spend that. I also have several Tales of Terror. Wow, I didn't realize I had that many. Those are useful. There's actually someone that you can sell those to. She doesn't give you a whole lot for it, or sometimes you can use them if somebody wants to like trade a story with you. You can give them a Tale of Terror, and that'll get you something. Sometimes, if you have a negative outcome of something, like, for example, this one that I just did, where I got into a fight with a bunch of sailors, if I failed that, one of my sailors would have gone careening over the side of the stalactite and impaled themselves down on one of the stalactites below. Or the stalagmites, I'm sorry. And that would have given me a Tale of Terror. That's something that I can retell later. I've also got Memories of Distant Shores, Fragments, Scraps of Lore, and Recent News. Now, the recent news is spent, like a currency. Like, I use it, and it's gone, because after I tell it, it's not recent anymore, so I can't really use it anywhere else. Different things like that. It's a very abstract and kind of different way of storytelling and exploring. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave here for a moment. I'll kind of just sail as far as I can to show you some of the things that a little bit farther out. Things get more abstract and terrible as you keep going. I think that's a merchant ship down there. I really want to get to the what is it? Oh, I forget what it's called. The Sea of the Hungering Sea or something like that. Now these abysses will come into the game later as well. Currently they don't actually do anything, they're just kind of landmarks that you can find. But later on in the game, the devs are going to add something called a submarine, which I'm really excited about. It means you'll be able to explore those abysses and go toe-to-toe with the terrors that lurk in the deep. Now, insanity and kind of superstition really play a huge, huge role in this game. Now, this right here is Commingle. This is the place where I forget what his name is, the King of 1,000 Hearts, I think it is. He creates his clay men, and they carry out his bidding. This down here, this is called Godfall. I'm sorry, jeez, I can't speak today. This one is a fallen stalactite that crashed to the ground. It was a citadel. It's turned into like this giant fortress that these monks live on. These warrior monks that they hang out and slay giant sea monsters. And they're pirate monks, basically. Ah, yes, this is it. I knew what this was called. Tides of Appetite. That's what it is. They're these giant, like, horrible, almost screaming faces that are underwater. And at first, it made me, like, really uncomfortable to actually sail over them. I mean, rightfully so, because they are terrifying. And that is just, like, a tiny, tiny bit of the terrible things that live underwater. Every so often, you know, you'll do something, one of your sailors will freak out and just, like, jump over the rails and drown himself because he saw a white bat sitting on one of the rails, and that means that one of the gods of the sea is watching. Oh. Ooh, a rat barge. Let's hope they didn't see me. This island right here is another great example. This is, like, the mailman's island. I kid you not. That is exactly what this thing is for. But it also has some dark secret where all mail that does not reach its destination. It all washes up on these shores. So they have, like, entire teams of people that just sit at the seashore, and day in and day out, without resting, they just sweep this mail back into the surf trying to get rid of it. Or they pick it up and feed it into a machine that sorts it out. And it never goes anywhere. It just piles up. There's nothing to be done with it, but it's their job to sort it all out anyways. It really captures that sense of, like, hopelessness and despair and just quiet resolve of doing something that inevitably won't matter anyways. You are very much fighting your fate, kind of straining against the inevitable tides that pull you towards whatever fate that you have been assigned. And it leaves you almost feeling powerlessness, which is great. It's something that you really don't experience often in a lot of games. Now, this is the Colonians, I think, here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's what it is. So these guys are really dangerous because they'll pretty much more or less attack you if they see you on the water. Like this right here, this is a great example. These are the beasts that lurk in the deep. This is a giant skull that's been split by these guys. And if you look off to the right side of the screen, you can see a skeleton as well, like the spine of some great ancient beast. So, I don't want to, like, just keep going. I really wanted to kind of just jump into this and show you guys what you're missing out on. If this game looks like something you'd be interested in, by all means, I mean, check it out. It's kind of hard to pick up. It takes a little bit of learning, but it is a fantastic game, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that really likes exploration or really like... I mean, I am a sucker for atmospheric games, so this totally appealed to me. If this is something that you'd like, I urge you to check it out on Steam. I'll see if I can include a link there. But yeah, I really hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's a very, very, very basic, very brief glimpse of what this game has to offer. And I think I'm going to go quiet here in just a second so you can kind of listen to the whispering and listen to the music playing. And it really sort of gives you a good feeling of what this game is like. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this is something you enjoyed. Really, seriously, check this game out. It's worth it. I'll see you guys later.